And then a cool thing happened after the book came out, where a lot of people were hitting me up after that book came out on LinkedIn and places like this. Hey, can you help me learn how to trade? Can you mentor me? And you get to a point in life in your 50s, I think, where you do want to kind of help people. People have helped you, and therefore you owe it to sort of help other people. And you also start to change your view on life, that really giving back is the key. That's a whole nother philosophical conversation. But because all these people were helping me out, were hitting me up, and I can't help 300 people at the same time, right? So one of them ended up starting this web page that people get on, and we have a Discord chat. So I spent a lot of the day on the Discord chat, speaking to them about markets and speaking to them about trading, and we speak about other things too. We joke around when the markets are slow and we have fun, but that's become another place to kind of spend my time. So like, that's on my computer while I'm watching the markets, but it's also giving me sort of something else to do while it's all going on.
I love that. That's a crazy routine, but I totally understand when you have a passion for the market, like that's really what you really want to do, then that makes sense to do it. So
it's a crazy life, and it's a crazy routine. Yes, I have sat in front of these screens. Sometimes I see things and people are like, man, how did you see that? I'll go, because I've sat in front of these, I've been watching these things 18 hours a day for 30 years. You know what I mean? Sometimes you pick things up,
Also, when you think about it, like the average trader watching the charts maybe like 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day. Like even for myself, I don't watch a chart that often, that long, but I watch them a couple of times a day for sure. But there's probably things you pick up by watching the charts a lot, by going through the price action, the data on the chart. Like there's probably some commodities and things you pick up that you wouldn't pick up if you just look at the chart like an hour a day or something.
I would think so. Although probably doing it an hour a day probably makes it a lot better, but your return on time is probably a lot better if you can make money doing it that way. I always talk about this trade that I made when it was in that book, but I got long because I was looking at the charts, and I got the long the Hang Seng Index, and I thought that I thought it was going to go up, for a number of different reasons. I thought it was going to go up. So I bought a bunch, and then I went away to Africa for 4 weeks. And this was pre-cell phones kind of, and pre-internet really. So there was nothing I can do. I told my broker, look, if it goes down here, then stop me out. Otherwise, I'll call you in a month. Right. So I didn't look at a chart for a month. I didn't even know what was going on in the world for a month. And I came back, and lo and behold, the market had gone up a whole bunch, and I made a whole bunch of money. I didn't look at a chart once. Right. So it's probably the better way to do it. This is just, I don't know, it's habit. This is old habit. And like I say, it's important for me to be, because of the correlation in the portfolio and whatnot. I really need to pay attention to that.
Yeah, you used to have a big job when you manage a fund to be able to make sure the risk is not too high on some things, and that you don't like overexpose yourself for sure. So do you feel like the big events we have these days, like the war in Ukraine, the COVID thing that happened before, do you feel like those add more risk to your portfolio, or do they kind of not really add any risk to it?
I think there's always something. I mean? There's always something. I mean? Okay, we haven't had a war in Ukraine before, but I don't know, since I was born, I've been hearing about the Middle East and how it was going to blow up the world. And then we had North Korea was going to blow up the world. And, the whole Russian American thing before that, the Cold War thing, now it's inflation, before it was deflation, recession. It's always something, it's always something. So I don't really think that that changes. I mean, sure, volatility picks up on the day of, Russia invading Ukraine or whatever. But I feel like there's always something going on. So I guess the short answer is no, I don't think it changes.
Now, I do want to talk about the Market Wizard book that you were featured in, and being featured in one of the Market Wizards is like a big thing. So all the guys watching the interviews are going to know what Market Wizards is for sure. They've all read it for sure. So tell me, what was that like to be approached to be in the Market Wizards book? How did that go, and how did you kind of feel about it?
It's funny, because the first book that I ever read about trading, and I read it the first day that I put on a trade on the Hang Seng Index. I had no idea what I was doing. I went to the bookstore, and there was a book that looked kind of cool. I bought it. I read it that night. I thought it was the coolest thing in the world, and it really set me down my path of trading. Right. So when you're like that and you're 22, your dream is to be a market wizard. Hey, I want to be in Market Wizards. Right. But when he approached me, I really didn't want to be in it anymore, and I told him that. More to the point that I'm not looking to raise money. You know what I mean? I manage all the money that I want to manage. I have the clients that I want to have. So I didn't need to do it from a marketing perspective or anything like that. I also sort of have that superstitious feeling that once you subject yourself to that kind of press, then you're digging your own grave. You know what I mean? I don't know if you ever read Victor Niederhoffer's first book, but I thought that one of the messages that Victor Niederhoffer was giving in his first book is that if you write a book, you're about to blow out, right? And he did write a book and he did blow out, right? So he proved his own point, right? And so it's not really important to me to get fame or to get notoriety. I don't care if anybody knows me. All I want to do is make money in the markets. That's what I want to do, right? So I was kind of against it. And I talked to Jack about that, and he just kind of kept coming back to me, and he was like, well, I mean, Bruce Kovner was in my book. That didn't do any bad things for him. You know, Paul Tudor Jones was in my book. It didn't do anything bad for him. So, you know, so, and then I talked to some friends and they were like, just go for it. Stop being such a wimp. So I did. So I agreed to do it. And look, it ended up, I tell you what, first of all, my P&L did top for about 5 months the day the book came out. So I was right about that. Hooray for me. Right, and lost money. But it turned out it ended up doing some good things. This whole webpage thing and all that has been really enjoyable. And that really came a lot from that. I don't think anybody would be interested in getting on my webpage if I wasn't in Market Wizards. That's where most of the people came from. They read the book. They liked what I was talking about. They searched for me. They see my webpage. They get on there. So yeah, that's a good thing that's come out of it. So it's fun. I guess it's fun.
Yeah, and it's definitely a big thing because like there's not 1,000 market wizards anyway. There's only a few of them, and you're part of them too now. So that's amazing. And also it shows credibility because like all your track record, I'm sure you had to submit them to Jack, and then they had to check this out and make sure that you are redoing what you were doing in the past. So that's definitely a big thing. So I mean that's a big accomplishment for you, of course.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I mean it was nice. Jack's a good guy, and those books were always my favorite. So the first 3 Market Wizards books I think are phenomenal. I mean, they're all good, but the first 3 for me were phenomenal. Really helped me to sort of really believe that this could be done and think about how to do it.
So what would you tell people who want to succeed in trading but can't seem to get profitable, or they keep blowing up account? Like what do they have to focus on to get out on the right side and start to make some profits in the market?
Process, discipline, and honesty. You have to, and not thinking that it's just an easy thing to do. You have to understand 98% of the people or some number like that lose money doing this. So how are you going to become that 2%, right? And I know everyone thinks, oh, because I'm the smartest guy there is. Well, A, you're not. And B, even if you were, that's not enough. You really have to think about how you're going to get an edge. And once you get that edge, how you're going to be disciplined enough to take advantage of that edge. That's really the game. You're not going to get in there and get on a bunch of whatever Reddit pages and everyone's saying buy this, and so you're going to buy it. You know what I mean? You're not going to get in there and start trading Fibonacci numbers, you know what I mean, and all this and make money. It's not going to happen. A million people have tried it and a million people have failed, so you have to be very honest about the whole thing, and it has to be, you have to be dedicated to it. You're not going to do this on a whim and just make money in a bull market. Sure. But it's not always a bull market, and I don't think it's going to be a runaway bull market for a very long time anymore. So those days are gone. So if you really want to be a trader and you really want to make money, then, read the Market Wizards, read all of them, read as much as you can. There's all kinds of great books out there. You know what I mean? I went off reading trading books, because I felt like I read all the ones and all the lessons from trading books I had already read. But, I read books on human psychology, which is really all trading is, right? I have a book right here that I just bought here called Thinking in Bets by Annie Duke, who's a famous poker player. And, she talks a lot about, it's all just risk reward. There's really no difference between poker and trading, right? So it's got to be a thought process, and you have to be very disciplined and you have to be very dedicated to do this, because it's very, very hard. What I always tell people is go to law school, because then you're not going to get stuck into this life of trading. You know what I mean? Go to law school, make a good living as a lawyer. And if you feel like trading, okay, take some of that extra income that you're making as a lawyer and trade the markets a little bit on the side. That's my best piece of advice. But if you're really dedicated to being a trader, then just be prepared for a very long journey.